whatever, if they come up and you understand that that's your shadow side coming up, then you can deal with it consciously. And he's asked in the question and answer period here, okay, these shadow things come up, how do you deal with them? And he says, well, the answer is by consciousness, okay, because if they're conscious, they don't rule you. If they're unconscious, they can rule you in some way.
And yet,
right,
when an artist works to affect you from the unconscious, so that things begin to bubble up related to that experience. So it's interesting how you can use that to an effect as well. Rather, so being unconscious is something that bubbles up, like from the shadow. You want to learn to control it. But if somebody's manipulating you so that there's an unconscious bubbling up, and they're trying to get an effect, or even a hypnotherapist would try to do something like that, because they're going to work with metaphor or something. Writers do it, but they're working from the inside out instead of being an explainer, which is working from the outside in.
Well, I mean, one of my numinous experiences was the Jackson Pollock piece that I saw at the Boston Museum. And, I'd seen postcards of Jackson Pollock's drip paintings before, but I walked into a room and here's a 20-foot by 10-foot drip painting. And, it wasn't spectacular in color. It was sort of olive drab and grays and blacks and a little bit of white in it, but mainly, my recollection of it is mainly green, okay? But I walked into this room and I took one look at this thing, and all of a sudden I started to sob. Now, to this day, I have no idea.
You said it was olive green?
Yeah. Yeah, okay, maybe. Okay. You may have popped up something here. Who knows? It's possible, yeah. There's some connections there. But yeah. You're making me emotional about it right now because of that. Right. Right. And my roommate from the basic school, 5 months after we graduated as second lieutenants, he was killed in Vietnam on April the 11th, 1969. So now Bill has connected up that Jackson Pollock with olive drab and now we're talking about Bob Christian, my roommate from Vietnam. And interestingly, his sister is connected with me in 2005, and she's a Unitarian minister in Santa Barbara. She's no longer doing that anymore. I'm not sure, I think she may have moved to Tucson, but anyway, she's still actively friend with me on Facebook, and there's a very emotional bond between her and me, because Bob was my brother too. He was like my big brother for the time we were in the basic school. But in any case, I didn't have that connection before until Bill introduced it as a possibility, and I'm getting emotional about it right now only because of that. But at the time, I walked into that room, and this has never happened to me with art. I walked into that room, I looked at that thing, and I started to sob, and I had tears running down my face. And I almost never remember another time when I sobbed so much. And Jackson Pollock has been dead since 1954. So his unconscious communicated directly to my unconscious without passing either one of our conscious minds. And that's why the great works of art, you can be very moved by them, even though they're you know, the artist is long dead because their spirit is still there in some way. And at that same exhibit,
Or the spirit that came through them is still there.
right, exactly, right. Okay, the spirit that came through them is still there. I mean, the other one, which I'll just mention, and we've talked about it before, is this piece, I think a man named Theron, if I'm not mistaken, but he did a table and chairs, just like this table and chairs, only 3 times normal size. And it took an entire room. There was one room dedicated to this piece. And so when you walked in, the tabletop was over your head, and the seats and the chairs were up here, right? And you walked into it and you were under the table, and instantly you feel like you're 3 years old. It's unbelievable. It's amazing. I mean, it almost knocked my socks off when I experienced that. And, you know,
Flashbacks.
Huh?
Flashbacks.
Yeah, I mean, I like art, and I like doing art, but those are the only 2 times that I really had a very strong emotional reaction to the pieces. So,
Can we talk a little bit more about uniting the opposites?
yeah,
Because you're saying it's just automatically happens when you make the opposites conscious.
well,
Right.
I mean, this was his answer, and you should listen to this entire thing because there's a lot of stuff in there, starting with Faustus. Okay,
I mean, these
but
are conflicts. These are really can be very serious.
well, they're either
conflicts,
they're
right?
yeah, they're conflicts or they're loves. I mean, they're you know, you're just carried away because you're attracted. Okay, you're either carried
Okay,
away.
I got you.
Okay,
I got
that's what he's saying about Mysterium Coniunctionis. It's either love or hate. Okay, and so if you want to know how this is going to affect you, how you can make this affect you, is by paying attention to what you love or hate. You know, if something's got your eye, then you should work with that, right? Consciously, okay? It's making no value judgment about how you come down in the duality then. Okay, you've got these 2 ends of the spectrum, and there's a cursor that gets put down somewhere. And every time something new happens, that cursor gets changed. Okay, so I've been saying that our new president, Friday is going to be the best day of his life. Okay, that's it. That's all there is, because it's not going to get better. It just cannot, because then it's his responsibility.